Right now in your life, what are the things that are the most important things to you? What do you spend the majority of your day thinking about or considering or dreaming about doing, or the things that you own or the people in your life that you would say are the absolute most important things to you, that are at the very core of who you are right now in this current world that we're living. And I want you to really think about that and what those things are. You know, put together like a top 5 list or something like that, and really think through what you value the most. Okay? I think it's important to do. I'm going through this exercise myself, and if you want to do it the right way and really figure out what those things are, it's not an easy thing to do, because you'll find that your mind tends to shoot off in a lot of different directions throughout the day that distract you from the things that are most important to you. But after we figure out what those things are in our lives right now, what we really need to do, and this is what I feel God has been sharing with me more and more, is to figure out if we can give those things up completely, if need be, and still serve Him. And that's a hard thing to think about, because we know as people who serve our Creator that our ultimate purpose, no matter what, when we're born, is to serve Him. He created us to love and worship Him. He also created us to enjoy certain things in this world that the enemy has fought for so long to take away from us. Relationships, family, things like that. But what God is really calling out to us, I think, or at least to me, are you willing to give all of that up? Would you be willing to give up the most important things to you? Your home, your retirement, anything, if it came down to it, to serve Him. And if you remember in the Gospels, when Jesus, for lack of a better term, recruited those who followed Him, His disciples, He told them to leave everything they had and follow Him. It's all He told them to do. He didn't tell them how to do it. He didn't tell them, give them a timeline in the next 6 months. He said, leave everything and follow me. And they did. They were willing to do that. Very few people are, but those few people were. 2,000 years ago. And we're in such a crucial time in history right now, like a time never before in human history, that I know our Creator is going to call out a certain percentage of His people to do that exact same thing. Leave everything behind and serve Him. I'm not saying everybody, but I have a feeling there could be a few people listening to me or hearing my voice that might be feeling something kind of rumble and churn inside of them that might find some truth to what I'm saying about that. And I'm not saying that God is doing it in this very moment, or that He's doing it with me even. I'm saying it's something He wants us to really consider and think about, and really ponder and meditate on our priorities in our life. So I think the exercise of doing that and figuring out those top 5 things that are most important to you, that you feel you couldn't give up, the exercise in and of itself will first of all really help refine the way you think, because you'll be able to more focus on the things that are most important to you. That's step 1. And then coming to an acceptance that if need be, you would give those up to serve your Creator. That's step 2. And coming to that acceptance then allows you to enjoy those things even more, knowing full well that if God ever were to call you out in such a way, you'd be willing to do it and never look back. And I think that's kind of a true definition of freedom. Freedom is not just being able to wander around and travel and do whatever we want. Freedom is more about mental freedom, right? To have the freedom and lack of fear that no matter what, you're good. No matter what happens to you, you're fine. Because mentally, you're clear. Emotionally, you're stable. Things don't matter. I think that's going to be really, really important for us as we go into these next months to remember that if we have a fear of losing what we have right now, things aren't going to go well for us. We have to count it all as gone already, right? In our minds, and accept the fact that we could go into a very difficult time where we don't have a lot of things, where we don't have a lot of communication with people, but we'll still have God, and God will be there with us. And even though we've had to give up all those things that we once valued, especially tangible, like monetary things, or what some might call toys, boats and houses and cars and trucks and all that stuff, and campers. I mean, those could serve some practical purpose, right? If things get weird in the next few months and years, but you can't attach your value to those things, because those are just things and tools that God can give you to use if need be, but they're never were intended to be our entire lives and what we worked for, and having loans and paying off loans for boats and cars. And that's not what God intended for us to do. And we find the freedom of losing all of that stuff, or getting rid of all that stuff, is true freedom. It's mental freedom. It just seems like there's a huge remnant of people right now, as we're in this in-between stage between the old world that they've destroyed in the last year and whatever's to come next. There's this very large remnant of people that can't seem to make the transition from saying, okay, we're never going back to where we came from, and I don't really want to go back there anyway because it wasn't all that great, and we're going somewhere that these quote-unquote leaders of the world are trying to take us through the Great Reset, but we don't want that. And just to say, well, geez, I could have freedom myself and do what I want to do as led by my Creator. It's so simple. It's going to require giving up the comforts that we've known our entire lives, but I think the rewards that we'll get in return for leaving those things behind are going to far outweigh anything that we leave behind. You think of the shallowness of possessions. You think of the shallowness of the digital world and the online world and the time we spend on that, and all things that really at the end of it all mean absolutely nothing. And I'm convinced that God really like shakes down and boils down this world and shakes out his true people, that it's going to be obvious to us that we want to give up those things and we want to serve him. We want to serve him together. Am I saying you can't have a relationship? And no, of course not. Of course, God, I've talked about that in prior videos. God wants that for us. He made us to be together. He made us to be creators. Man and woman together, But would you be willing to give that up to serve God? And that's the key. And if he knows you would, he'll use you in ways you can't even imagine. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come down to losing your spouse. I recently talked briefly with somebody, and she was telling me that in the last year, God had been talking to her about serving him and things like that, and put her through a similar test, and it was to say, if you were to have to lose your children to serve me, can you do it? And she was telling me how it was the hardest, test or challenge that she's ever been through. Because of course that's the most important thing to her, right? Besides God. And after wrestling with it and battling with it, she finally got there and landed on the fact that if it ever came to that, and it was clearly from God, and God was leading her movement, that they would be taken care of and that she would do what she needed to do. Will it ever come to that? Probably not. But God wants to know that we have that faithfulness in him. Look at what he did to Abraham in the Old Testament with Isaac. Right? So I think we need to be prepared at all times to say, take up your cross and follow me from Christ and leave it all behind. But we won't be prepared to do that unless we first understand fully what we're leaving behind and the most important things to us to categorize what we're able to emotionally detach from if need be. And even if it doesn't come to that, and that's the confusing part, because this world is going to change so much. And I really believe technology is going to die. We're going to defeat the artificial intelligence monster that's been taking over this world. And when we do, bam, the world is going to change right then completely. When AI is gone, and we'll go back to a different way of living prior to, the internet and all of that, all the things that's like all we've known for the past 20 or 25 years, but it's a short period of time. And there was a whole world before that. And I think we're going to go back to that. And again, when that happens, you're going to lose a lot of the things you're used to today. So we're going to have to be used to the idea of losing the kind of, as they always say, first world problems, right? The conveniences that we have right now that have made us lazy and sloppy in so many ways, and really turned us into just a society that could be railroaded by this agenda for the last year, because we've become so soft and weak because everything is so convenient, and it's not going to stay that way, I promise you. And if you're not ready for it, you're not going to get through it. So I encourage you seriously tonight, spend some time, figure out those 5 things that you feel right now would be the hardest things to give up, and really meditate and think about those and pray about each one individually with God, and see how he leads you into ways mentally and emotionally where you can figure out, yeah, I can be okay with that as long as I have you. And it'll help you kind of dive deeper into your appreciation for your Creator as well. As always, God bless. I hope something I said tonight makes sense and helps you. And we will speak soon. Peace.